Welcome back. For some time now, employers have been encouraging their staff to become vaccinated with a strong desire to return to the pre-pandemic life. Employers want to understand to what extent can they require employees to become vaccinated and the options available to the employer if employees refuse. Whether an employer can require its employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19 as a condition of employment still needs to be seen in Namibia, as the Ministry of Labour, Industrial and Relations Employment Creation is gauging stakeholders. Petrina Nghidengwa, who is the Deputy Director of Occupational Health and Safety at the Ministry, now joins us in studio to share more on how this matter affects you as an employee. Good morning, ma'am, and thank you very much for being here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here.
All right, ma'am. Just to start off our conversation, please talk to us about some of the COVID-19 related complaints that the ministry has received since the beginning of the pandemic.
Thank you very much. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, the ministry have experienced and have been overwhelmed with a lot of complaints pertaining to COVID-19. And these complaints differ, it covers different areas. For example, we receive workers who are complaining that their leave has been, or to say they've been forced to take or to use their annual leave, or some have been forced to take unpaid leave just to cover for the time that happened at the time of the lockdown. So just to respond to COVID-19, so some employers have been forcing the workers to take unpaid leave, or to be forced, they were forced to take to use their annual leave during lockdown. Other issues are the issues pertaining to remuneration, where you find that some workers' salaries have been reduced, some to 25%, 30%, 50%, and this was really the issues that was really hitting around the labor market. Some complained that they did not receive a salary even for 3 months. The other issues that we received as complaints during COVID-19 is the collective retrenchment. And when you look at the first quarter of 2020-2021, the ministry received, or to say 32% of the reported retrenchment are due to COVID-19. A lot of unfair labor practices were received at our offices. And when it comes to safety and health, most workers were complaining that they were not issued with correct PPE or a mask, where you find workers or employers, sorry, not workers, but employers who expect workers to buy their own mask to use at workplace, which is not in line with the Labour Act. Basically, those are the key issues. And as a ministry, we have to put up a strategy to compact those issues. One strategy was to the directorate, which is responsible for labor services. We have to come up with joint inspection, where the two divisions, the division responsible for conditions of employment and division responsible for safety and health, they jointly inspected workplaces where most of the complaints are coming from. So with that joint inspection, most of the issues were resolved. Employers and their workers were educated. And the other strategy that we came up with, we developed a guideline, COVID-19 Occupational Safety and Health Guideline, which guided the employers and the workers how to mitigate or minimize COVID-19 at workplace.
How has the response to this guideline been from the employers and employee side?
I would say the response was very well. It's good. Mainly for two reasons. The first reason is that we have been receiving calls from employers inquiring whether the ministry has got guidelines to guide them on how to manage COVID-19 at workplaces. They are inquiring on their availability. Where can we find these guidelines? Now, the second reason why I'm saying the response was very good is that employers out there, they really try their best to make sure that they put control measures in place just to minimize the spread of COVID-19. In this control, I like to give example of retailers.
All right.
When you enter a shop, you can see that most of the employer have introduced a barriers that they put like between the cashier and the client, that they put a barrier there just to minimize the contact between their employer, between their worker and the client. And those workers really, some of them you can see that they have double protection. There's that barrier, there's a mask, some even have got face shield. So I would say the response it's quite positive, and I can applaud the Namibian employers for them to make sure that they have protect their workers.
Well, ma'am, an issue of great concern for many is the issue of mandatory vaccinations. So what is the ministry's current stance in relation to that?
The current stand for the government is that vaccination is a voluntarily. That is where we stand as a ministry. And for those who feels that they need to make it a mandatory, we urge them that they follow the right procedures because we know in labor, you cannot just introduce a policy without consulting other parties. They need to consult each other. They need to facilitate for social dialogue, that the employer meet with their workers and their representative. And when they are coming up with a policy, that policy have to be agreed upon by the two parties.
Can an employer require its employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19 as a condition of employment?
That is not in line with the Labour Act. Therefore, I would say that shouldn't happen. If that have to happen, as I have indicated, that have to be agreed by the parties that within this organization, because we requires workers to be represented by unions, and whatever decision that need to be made within that company have to be agreed by the two parties, the employers and the employer, and the workers' representative, which are the unions.
We understand that the ministry is embarking on drafting guidelines in relation to, in regards to mandatory vaccinations. Please elaborate on this process, ma'am.
When it comes to labor, whatever you do, social dialogue is very important, which is the consultation. Social partners have to be consulted. The issue of mandatory vaccination has been already discussed by the ministry with the social partners, which are the employers and the workers' representatives. And now, when it comes to the process, what is going to happen is that there will be, or there is, a drafting committee that have to draft that guideline. And once they draft, it have to be referred to the Labour Advisory Council. The Labour Advisory Council is constituted of the government, employers' representative, and the unions' representatives. And after that, I can add that to say that Labour Advisory Council, they have a subcommittee of occupational safety and health, which can also look at those guidelines to be drafted and give comments after consulting their constituencies and take it back to LAC, and after that, the guidelines have to be referred to the government drafting committee.
How long do we expect this process to take, please?
From the ministry side, we intend to finalize this draft by next week.
Okay.
Then it takes the whole process.
Ma'am, I want us to shift our focus away from COVID-19 just for a while. Apart from the COVID-19 health guidelines, what other policies are in place from the ministry in terms of employers and employees' workplaces?
In terms of occupational safety and health, Namibia have just launched its ever-first National Occupational Safety and Health Policy recently. And this policy, it really intends to improve the national occupational safety and health system. It intends to introduce programs that are aiming to minimize accidents and incidents at workplaces, and also including occupational diseases, because we believe that if we minimize that, we are ensuring a safe working environment for the workers, and definitely the enterprise will also benefit from the safe and healthy working environment.
As we round up our conversation, any final remarks?
Yes, definitely. My final remarks is going out to the employers and their workers, that they should collaborate in the effort of combating COVID-19. Whatever is happening within workplaces, employers should make sure that they facilitate the conversation where they can collectively agree on what needs to be done. And lastly, I'm calling up the world of work to make sure that we mask up, we sanitize, we maintain social distancing, and with that, definitely, we will minimize the spread of COVID-19 at the workplaces.
Thank you very much for being here.
It's a pleasure, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. That was Petrina Nghidengwa, who is the Deputy Director for Occupational Health and Safety in the Ministry of Labour, Industrial Relations and Employment Creation. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.